This Game 2 NBA Playoffs Player Props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 100 times your entry with Underdog Fantasy. Pick 'em. Sign up with NBA SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit. Offer up to $250 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code NBA SGPN. And we're also brought to you by the Mega Memorial Merch Sale. 15% off of everything in the SGPN merch store with promo code SGPN May. Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Thursday, May the 23rd, currently 12:07 p.m. on the East Coast. Here to get into our player props for game twos of both the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. We'll talk about some general stuff about player performances and anything that just maybe stick out to us in the MVP market for the conference finals, and also, of course, give out our player props as well. We'll also give our honorable mentions and then wrap it up with the best bet. You guys know how we do it here, but people got tired of listening to me solo. I know Chris has been grinding away. It's WNBA season. It's NBA season winding down. But I got to get my guy back. We're going to be here now for the NBA season. And like I mentioned on the other pods that I did, I will be ramping it up for the NFL season as well. But Chris, what's going on, my man? How's the playoffs been treating you?
What's up, it's good to be back, part of the podcast, man. I'm happy to be here. And playoffs have been a little up and down, I feel like it started off pretty well and then took a downturn, and then things got better, and then it took another slight downturn, and coming off a 2-0 day yesterday, and that always feels good. So Hopefully we can kind of channel that, round 3 conference finals energy into continuing to parlay that into some more winners here, and hopefully for the finals as well. But it's been really exciting, These playoffs have been, I think, everything we could kind of anticipated outside of some key injuries to some players that I think definitely would have, changed some series. But outside of that, man, we've been getting very competitive basketball. And as a fan, that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, injuries have been the theme of this NBA playoffs, and I just want one playoffs where just all players are healthy. I don't want to see like that basketball being played at the highest level with the best players in the world. But I mean, again, I've said this a lot of times, injuries are just part of the game, and it just happens. And is it something that the league needs to do to maybe cut down games or give more days off in between games? I mean, that's the conversation we'll have in the off season. Once the NBA season does wrap up, when we kind of look back at it. But again, there was a lot of guys, I mean, we can count on both hands that would have made a significant difference in the results of some of these teams that have been eliminated. But, again, and like we said this, that you play who's in front of you, you play the players that are in front of you, especially at this time of year. And again, give credit to the teams that are here, the Final Four teams, the Celtics, the Pacers, the Mavericks, and the T-Wolves. So I'm excited, man. We've gotten 2 great game ones of the conference finals. Hopefully that carries through to the entire conference finals, and then on to the NBA finals here. So we'll do our player props first for game twos here, and then we'll talk about maybe some, conference final MVP odds, or maybe final MVP odds that maybe stick out to us. May not have a lot for it, but, maybe something to look at right now, especially early on before we do get to the NBA finals here. But Chris, before we do dive into it here, let me tell everyone about our a race week, I should say, in our NASCAR gambling podcast and the F1 gambling podcast. It's the biggest week in racing. The Indy 500, the Monaco Grand Prix, and the Coke 600. Rod and Cody from the NASCAR gambling podcast and the F1 gambling podcast have you covered. Make sure to join their Kyle Larson diecast car giveaway that's free to enter. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/race to register, and make sure to subscribe to the NASCAR gambling podcast and the F1 gambling podcast. Plus, we're running a Mega Memorial Day merch sale, 15% off of everything in the merch store. Make sure you use that promo code SGPN May to get, again, 15% off of everything in the merch store. Chris, before we dive into the player props here, man, anything that stuck out to you from a player perspective, guys that have stepped up, I know some of these role players have been really, really key to the success. I think one guy in particular that has been doing, or that I think was a catalyst, especially in round two for the Dallas Mavericks, was PJ Washington in the couple games there where he was shooting the ball absolutely lights out. He was doing a great job of rebounding. I know in game six or game five or game six, where he got into some early foul trouble, but Derrick Jones Jr. in that series clinching game was absolutely phenomenal. Game one last night, he did I think I want to say a pretty good job matching up defensively against Anthony Edwards. And I've said this a lot, that role players obviously are the key to the success of the NBA finals and winning a championship. Obviously, the stars are going to shine. We saw that last night with Kyrie. We saw that with Luka last night, but sometimes these role players don't get their flowers. But even if it's a team that's not in the playoffs right now, or a player that's not in the playoffs right now that kind of caught your eye, that you want to look out for maybe next season, or that really not getting their flowers, Chris, that stuck out to you? Any of those players that stick out to you?
Man, it's a lot, I think the role players have really kind of, really carried these teams. When we talk about Luka kind of being non-existent in a couple games against OKC last round, he had a couple good games, but a couple of those games, like you said, it was PJ Washington. What the dude hit, 5 threes in first 3 games of the series, And I know, we as people who look at trends and say, this is not going to happen again. We say, okay, we'll take this guy under because he'll cool off. But PJ Washington has showed, man, that he can really go out there, stretch the floor. And I think, for the Dallas Mavericks, they've really just confirmed that they really trust him. If I think a lot of it is trust. Luka and Kyrie play off each other so well, and they use their teammates. Anthony Edwards, I thought, was key in game 7, because they were down double digits at halftime. I think 9, 10, 11 points at halftime. And they were blitzing them. Like, they were doubling him, trying to get the ball out of his hands. And before you know it, like I said, they're down at halftime. And Anthony Edwards, he could come out in the third quarter and try to be super aggressive because his teammates weren't making shots. And you just see him really still trust his teammates. And next thing you know, Carl-Anthony Towns and Jaden McDaniels and, Mike Conley Jr., those guys are, stepping up. So it's been, I would say a lot of those players here, have really stepped up. But the big one, PJ Washington, sticks out to me. Opposite series, I think we would be remiss without mentioning TJ McConnell and what he's brought to the Indiana Pacers. Yeah. I mean, 13 points and 4 assists in game 1. But all, just how impactful he was against the Knicks in that second unit. Like, he is a dog, and the Pacers, pretty much their whole bench. Like, we could go down the list, Obi Toppin and him continuing to get double digits in points. This Pacers bench averaged I think at 36 points per game during the regular season, the most points. And it's really hard to slow this team down, because they want to play fast and they have so many interchangeable parts. So, I would just, I guess, give some love to Obi Toppin and TJ McConnell since you mentioned PJ Washington already, for sure.
Yeah, TJ McConnell's been another guy that's been absolutely fantastic. And I want to see him play a little bit more minutes for the Pacers. I think this is a guy that should be out there for 30 plus minutes. And I know we talked about this earlier on the NBA pod. I think, and it could have been happening before, but I think this was, I want to say I don't want to say it was the first time, but having TJ and Tyrese out there together on the floor at the same time, I think that's going to pay huge dividends for the Indiana Pacers. So I want to see if Rick Carlisle does make that slight adjustment, having both of those guys out there at the same time and playing them together, going forward in this Eastern Conference Finals here. But you mentioned Anthony Edwards, I think, has done a great job of trusting his teammates. We saw it last night, Jaden McDaniels coming out and knocking down the first 4 three-point shots he put up. I mean, they were pretty much, most of them were wide open looks. He had a great game last night, but it was right last night for the Dallas Mavericks, led by Luka, led by Kyrie, which has been absolutely phenomenal for this team. And I think that's something that's going to have to continue for this Dallas Mavericks team. And I said when we previewed the Mavericks and the Wolves series, I said that I think whichever player has the better series between Kyrie and Karl-Anthony Towns, that team is, I think, more than likely going to advance to the NBA Finals, because in Denver, we saw it in games 1 and game 2 that Karl-Anthony Towns was absolutely fantastic in those 2 games. Minnesota took the lead 2-0. A lot of that may have to do with how great their defense played. But again, for Anthony Edwards, just this expectation, something similar to Jalen Brunson, where he has to probably go out and score 30, 35 points and not for his team to have success. But I think Anthony Edwards like you mentioned, he's trusted his teammates a lot. But I think Karl-Anthony Towns has been the guy that really needs to step up consistently for this Minnesota Timberwolves team if they are going to have success. So, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch as we progress through the conference finals here. Again, both game ones were absolutely fantastic. So I'm definitely looking forward to game two starting here tonight with Boston and Indiana, and then obviously with Dallas and Minnesota on Friday night. So, Chris, let's get into it here, man. Let's get into these player props. Why don't you lead us off, man? Player prop number one. What do you got?
So let's go to one of the games. The game that's tonight. I'm looking at Miles Turner here. I do think that Boston will play a little bit slower. I think they were trying to run the Pacers in game one just because they were coming off the game seven. But I think Miles Turner still just has the best matchup on the floor. If I'm the Indiana Pacers, I know Boston was running a lot of drop coverage, and that led to Tyrese Halliburton getting matched up on Al Horford. So he hit 6 of those 14 threes because of that. But I also think Miles Turner will continue to be able to take advantage of that matchup as well. I talked about this before game one. And I should have played it. Jokes on me. But this dude Miles Turner, he's one of the vets on the team. He shot 9 for 13 in game one. Cleared this points prop very, very easily. He finished with 23 points on 9 for 13 shooting. Hit 3 of his 4 threes, both of his free throws as well. And like I said, I think Horford is just a bit too slow. We know that the Pacers want to run a lot of pick and roll. They love half court offense, and that leads to a lot of pick and pop for a guy like Miles Turner. Like I said, he hit 3 of his 4 threes, and not that it matters so much in these back-to-back scenarios, but I do think that, it's some validity to the groove that he's in right now, which is why I want to bring this up. The 16.5, he's actually over in 3 straight games if we go back to the New York Knicks series, and 4 of his last 6. And I think that's just a testament to him shooting 54% from the floor and 48% from the three-point line. Like, this dude is not really missing a lot of shots. So I do expect some regression from the Pacers. I don't think every one of their starters are going to be in double digits with 2 bench players being in double digits. Like, I think some regression is coming, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be from Miles Turner, especially without Porzingis out there. So I'll take Miles Turner here over his 16.5 points. And I love that it's not juice. I can lay 5 cents here, minus 105. Give me Miles Turner over his 16.5 points.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's been absolutely phenomenal for this Indiana Pacers team. If we want to go back, all throughout the playoffs. And I think for Miles Turner, we've seen that he's been able to get to the basket, or he's making the proper cuts for his guards to find him and throw those thunderous dunks. I mean, we've seen multiple ones all throughout the playoffs for Miles Turner. And also, like you mentioned, he's been knocking the 3-point shot down consistently. Over the last 5 games, he's shooting at 65% from beyond the arc. He's averaging close to 3 makes per game. It's around 2.6. And he's also been efficient from the floor, close to 65% for the Indiana Pacers. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. Again, the blocks have been there for him as well. If you look at that for Miles Turner, curious to see if the market has caught up on that number. I'm sure it's like at 1.5 juice to the over, but he's at least 2 blocks in 5 straight games for the Indiana Pacers. So, he's been really pivotal to their success thus far for the Indiana Pacers. So, yeah, couldn't talk you off of Miles Turner on his prop here for tonight. I'll say the same game here, and I think this player was probably the best player on the floor for the Boston Celtics, and that was Jrue Holiday. An absolutely fantastic game 1, 28 points. I believe it was also finished the game with 7 rebounds, 8 assists. I'm going to zone in on that rebounds and assists again here tonight. That number is at 10.5 here for Jrue Holiday. And, I talked about the potential assists that were there for Tyrese Halliburton in game 1. I believe that number was 20. But Jrue Holiday, his potential assist in game 1, Chris, was 13, followed by Derek White at 12. Did finish the game with 8 assists. If you want to play the assist alone, that number was at 4.5 when I was looking at it last night. It's juiced around minus 150, so it's probably going to move to 5.5 once we get to game time here. But I feel like the pace may still be there for the Indiana Pacers, because I mentioned this on the NBA pod as well, is that I watched the interview with Rick Carlisle yesterday when he was on the McAfee show, and he mentioned that they're going to continue playing the way they play, and that's going to be led by Tyrese Halliburton. So I just also think that Boston is also going to continue playing their way. I think they probably slow it down in the second half, because we did see that a little bit in the second half of game one. But I think in game one, I still feel like that pace is going to be there. And I think Drew Holiday is a guy that gets it done on both sides of the floor. We saw him make some great shots in game one, some easy baskets, and he just puts himself in the right spot as well. And with the way that this Boston Celtics team loves to jack up the 3-point shot, like Drew Holiday will find those guys. He's also a guy that can get the rebounds for you as well. He's averaging 5.4 rebounds over the last 5 games. But I think the number, that assist number, it's the market hasn't caught up to it because of the pace of play I expect to see in this entire series between these two teams. So player prop number one for me here, Chris, Drew Holiday, rebounds and assists. The number's at 10.5 right now.
Yeah, difficult for me to talk you off of this one. I actually won't talk you off. I'll tell you that I like this one as well. And I think for me, if it's him asserting himself into the game early, right? Like really being locked in early and understanding, the advantage that he has. I like Drew Holiday in this series overall anyway. If I love that look, but I liked him in the series overall because he's a big guard. And if you're Boston, you want to make Tyrese Halliburton work on defense. So if you can throw the ball to Drew Holiday, low post, even, maybe elbow, right? And he can kind of, get his back towards the basket and really try to take advantage of this Indiana Pacers defense and Tyrese Halliburton specifically, and just, the lack of size and strength that Tyrese Halliburton has. What that'll do here is it will force the Indiana Pacers to come help. That leads to your assist opportunities there, So I think that's a really, really good look, really sharp look, taking him over his rebounds and assists here for Mr. Drew Holiday. He crushed the line, and I could definitely see that happening again here in game 2.
Yep. All right, Chris, before we get into our second round of player props here, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Hey, we're on to the conference finals of the NBA season. Now, our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, wants to make it a lot more interesting. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports, playing their pick'em game. It's as simple as selecting higher or lower on player stats like points, rebounds, assists, and so much more. Make entries of all basketball or mix and match across your other favorite sports. You can win up to 100 times your money, and it's a ton of fun. Underdog is available in 30-plus states, including California, Texas, and even Canada. New customers get a pick'em special in the lobby when they do sign up. Underdog will be running a ton of different promos, bonus cash airdrops, specials, giveaways, and more throughout the NBA playoffs. So make sure to follow @UnderdogPicks on Twitter to keep an eye out. Underdog is available in 30-plus states, including California, Texas, and Canada. They also just launched Champions, their player versus player format in Florida. Sign up today. Make sure you use that promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick, plus a first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code NBA SGPN. All right, Chris, let's keep it rolling here, man. Take us over to player prop number 2. What do you got?
So we mentioned him earlier. I'm actually going to to the game for tomorrow. I like PJ Washington to continue to do his thing here. I know the number. I'm not sure what it was for game 1. If it was 10.5, or if it was at 1.5, or if it was at 11.5, which is where I see it at now. But PJ Washington for one, I just love that he continues to be. He's a dog. He has a lot of confidence in himself. I think his teammates also have a lot of confidence in him as well. He is coming off a game where he shot just 4 for 10 from the floor, and only shot 2 for 8 from the 3-point line. If we watched the game, I'm pretty sure you were locked into game 1. Dallas Mavericks were 2 for 13 from the 3-point line in the first half, and only down by 3 points.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that was Luka, kind of struggling out the gate, Kyrie carrying them. So you can expect, maybe a little bit of regression for Kyrie here, even though I think he'll still be locked in as well. But for me, it's the attempts, like no matter if I can catch a guy that's going to play 35 plus minutes, which PJ Washington has played 30 plus minutes in the last 6 games in a row. I can't, a guy that's going to stay out of foul trouble, I can't not play against that. PJ Washington he shot 10 times in game 1, just 2 for 8 from the 3-point line, and still cashed the over here at 11.5. And just going back and looking at his game logs against the Thunder, game 6 and game 5, he did go under the 9.5, but he has made like big games of him. And I like that he was able to do it on the road as well. We remember game 1 and game 2, he was knocking down those threes. And then OKC, he had a 29-point game. And, he's also had double digits as well. So I think just because the minutes will be there, just because Kyrie and Luka trust him so much, just because the shots are going to continue to be there for him as well. Because if you're Minnesota, I think the game plan is still to try to limit the shot attempts for Kyrie and Luka and make some of those others beating them. And then they weren't in the first half. And then you see the shots start to fall. Luka started to pick it up late in the fourth quarter. So I like PJ Washington, over his 11.5 points, just thinking that the opportunities are going to be there. He's a great rebounder, offensive rebounds. I'm looking at his log right now. He has at least 7 in 3 of the last 4 games. So maybe even some extra chance opportunities there. And he'll put the ball on the floor as well. So I like PJ Washington. I know he's going to be on the road. I know Timberwolves are going to be desperate in game 2. But I really like PJ Washington to continue to ascend in his role as a good role player for this Dallas Mavericks team.
Yeah, I think the adjustment now for Minnesota is going to be how do you slow down Luka and Kyrie? And I think that I saw a quote from Mike Conley, and they said, or in so many words, he said, I don't think they were supposed to drop down in coverage against Luka. So I think they're going to end up, seeing him getting double teamed more so closer to the half court line or maybe the 3-point line. And then that just opens up the opportunities for a guy like PJ Washington to take those shots. We know the 3-point attempts are going to be there. He had 8 attempts in game 1. He had 8.6, or he's had close to 9 attempts over the last 5 games, dating back to the OKC series. And we know the rebounding opportunity is going to be there as well. And I think as the series progresses, we'll see the defense tighten up. And I think that shot making may be a little bit more difficult as this series goes on. And I think that's just going to lead to more rebounding opportunities. Like you mentioned, he's averaging 8 rebounds over his last 5 games. He's had 7 or more in 3 of the last 4 games as well. So I think that PJ Washington, they acquired him for a reason at the trade deadline. Him and Daniel Gafford. I think PJ Washington has really paid dividends thus far for this Dallas Mavericks team. And I think that's going to continue throughout the series for the Dallas Mavericks. So yeah, couldn't talk you off of PJ Washington for this game 2. All right. I'm gonna stay in the Boston game here, and I'm looking at Tyrese Halliburton, and I'm looking at his assists to go over the number of 8.5. It's at -102 right now. And you just take a look in game 1 against the Boston Celtics. And it was just incredible to see the potential assists that were showing up in the box score for Tyrese Halliburton. I'm trying to pull up the exact number because when I saw this number, Chris, I had to do a double take and kind of scratch my eyes. He had 20 potential assists in game 1, did Tyrese Halliburton. He did finish the game with 10. And I mentioned that Rick Carlisle was on the McAfee show yesterday after the game 1 loss. And in so many words, he said that we're going to continue playing the way we have been playing all season long and in the playoffs. And our leader on the offensive side and that decision maker is Tyrese Halliburton. And I know he's going to be out there for the minutes for this Indiana Pacers team. I know the assists weren't really there against the New York Knicks, but I think that, we mentioned the matchup with Drew Holiday. It's not like we're asking him to get a whole hell of a lot because during the regular season, we saw this number at 11.5, sometimes 12.5 for Tyrese Halliburton. But I think that number one, the advantage that the Pacers do have is down low on the block, where guys like Pascal Siakam had success in that paint area. Obi Toppin was another guy that was able to attack the basket and get to the rim, a guy that can be a rim runner for this team. But I know the ball is going to be in the hands of Tyrese a whole heck of a lot in this series. And I think that for tonight, at least, if they want to even up the series, it's going to have to start and stop with Tyrese Halliburton. And he, like I mentioned, he did have 10 assists on potential 20 assists in game 1. I think that same pace is going to be there throughout the series until the Pacers are eliminated. And there's no reason for them to get away from the way they've been playing, throughout the season and also the playoffs here. So I think Hallie continues. Minutes will be there. He's going to be able to find the shooters. They've been shooting red hot. The one concern that you do have is possibly that those shooting numbers regress. But if you kind of watch, especially game 1, that they were getting a lot of open looks at a mid-range area and were able to get to the basket as well. I know they're just going to jack up the 3-point shots, but more so that they're not afraid to attack the basket and get those easy points around the basket. I think Tyrese will be able to find those guys in game 2 here as well. So not asking him to get a lot here. 9 gets the job done for us. 10 obviously is only gravy on top of the assists here. So I'm going Tyrese Halliburton over 8.5 assists in game 2 here. Chris, what do you think about Tyrese in this game?
I mean, I think it's difficult for me to talk you off of him. If you laid it out beautifully, from the potential assist to what Coach Rick Carlisle said on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. And I mean, the eye test says it as well, right? The Pacers want to get the ball out of the rim or off the rim. If it doesn't go in, they just want to push the pace and see if you can outscore them. So, we talk about trusting teammates. Tyrese Halliburton is at the top of the list. They've never seen a shot that they don't like him. So I think he'll be able to advance the basketball, try to get out as fast as they can to avoid that Boston Celtics defense that's set in the half court. And I would only be able to look towards Tyrese Halliburton over his assists as well. Did you look at the price for the double-double here now?
Let me take a look at that. I'm sure obviously it's at plus money. Let's see. Combos, where'd it go? All right, double. Hallie is at plus 165. So that might just be a better look as well. I mean, you lose if he gets 9, but again, it's just kind of going back to what I mentioned, like game 1, he had 20 potential assists, which is absolutely wild. But yeah, I would spring on that plus 165 as well for Tyrese in this game here to get you some plus odds. All right, Chris, before we get over to our third round of player props here, speaking of player props, the newest sponsor on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, that is Rhythm. If you're betting on NBA player props, then you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm gives you a menu of the best player props for every single NBA playoff game, making it easy to go through and find the best props to put your money on in seconds. Rhythm's predictions are backed by over 3 years of data and a team of data scientists and quants that focus on fine-tuning our algorithm to give you the best shot at winning. Rhythm pairs its predictions with player prop graphs to help you feel even more confident in your picks, which you can make wherever you normally place your bets or DFS picks as well. From superstars to bench players, Rhythm finds the best players' prop lines, all backed by AI data, without you needing to endlessly scroll through a sportsbook. Rhythm also allows you to create your own custom NBA model so you can get AI-backed money line, spread, and total picks for every playoff game. Start a free 7-day trial and start winning your NBA playoffs with Rhythm. Available wherever you do get your apps. All right, Chris, let's get into player prop number 3 here, my friend. What do you got?
So let's go back to the game that's going to be played tonight, and I'm looking at Mr. Jason Tatum himself. And I like his rebounds here, They bumped the line up. It was 9.5. It ended up closing at 10.5 because money came in on the over, and he still went over. Now, granted, that game went to overtime, but like I said, I think Boston's defense is going to play a little bit better. Maybe some more missed shots. Indiana shot 53.5% from the field. I think that they'll play fast. I don't know if they're going to replicate that though. So I do think that a part of this is just Tatum, being the best rebounder on the Boston Celtics, and the Pacers, taking a bunch of shots. I think they shot 99 shots as well in that game. So a bunch of, rebound opportunities. Tatum did cash the over 9.5. And I think without Porzingis, I don't think we see much change here. I was watching some tape of Joe Mazzulla actually running Tatum at the center, a couple times as well. I don't think it was in the last game, but just throughout the series. And I could see that potentially happening as well, just because Al Horford, not always good. I mean, the Pacers don't have a post presence anyway. Anybody that's going to go down low and bang too much outside of Pascal Siakam, who plays the 4. So Tatum being the biggest player on the floor, if Al Horford goes to the bench and Luke Kornet is not in the game, definitely helps this as well. So 12 in game 1. He's cashed the 11 plus in 5 of his last 7 games. And like we said, no Porzingis, man. I think it's just I think that's what it is. Boston, I think I think they got woke up a little bit by the Indiana Pacers. Probably should have won game 1 as well. So yeah, I like all of that. He is averaging 10.5 rebounds in the playoffs on the dot. Through I think what is it, like 8, 9, 10 games so far, and almost 15.5 rebound chances here for Jason Tatum as well. So I think he continues to attack the glass. the Boston Celtics were slightly out-rebounded, I think 44-43 in game one. Mm-hmm. But over the course of the playoffs, they're +5 in rebounding. So I think a bit of it is them, doing a much better job even still with being able to rebound the basketball. And it's the last line of defense. So I think the minutes will be there. Tatum, of course, doesn't get in a lot of foul trouble. No Porzingis. Al Horford continuing to be pulled out, as well. He's being pulled away from the rim in that drop coverage, which limits his rebound opportunities and also just helps for Jason Tatum. So I like Tatum to go over his 10.5 rebounds here. You can get this at, I want to say close to plus money right now because it is juiced. The under is juiced. Jason Tatum is plus 105 on ESPN Bet right now. So you can get this at plus money, Mr. Jason Tatum, to get 11 rebounds here.
Couldn't talk you off. Go back to the last 4 head-to-head meetings during the regular season. 12 rebounds, 13 rebounds, 7 rebounds. And like you mentioned in game one, he had double-digit rebounds again with 12. And he's been really good rebounding the basketball in the playoffs for the last 4 games as well. And I think we got to eat up all the rebounding props we can with Jason Tatum before Porzingis does get back for this Boston Celtics team. So I couldn't talk you off. If you want to also look at his points and rebounds to go over, that number was at 41.5. I believe it's 9 straight games now that he's had 30-plus points against this Indiana Pacers team. So all the opportunities, whether it's rebounding or scoring the basketball, are going to be there for Jason Tatum. So minutes going to be there. Rebounding opportunities are going to be there. Shot volume is going to be there as well. So I think that if Boston's going to have success in this series, it's going to have to be on Jason Tatum to get him there to the NBA Finals. So, yeah, I couldn't talk you off of Jason Tatum here at all. All right, for my last player prop, before we do get some honorable mentions here, Chris, going over to that Dallas Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves series, I think that you got to look at Naz Reid here. The number now is adjusted to 10.5. It was hovering around 8.5, 9.5, but I think he's going to play some more minutes in this series against the Dallas Mavericks, and I think the 3-point opportunities are going to be there for him as well. He had 15 points in game one, 5 of 9 from the floor, 3 of 6 from beyond the arc, even got to the free throw line 4 times. Unfortunately, was only able to knock down 2 of those. But we know what Naz Reid is. Obviously, 6th man of the year for a reason. And in the 5 games against the Dallas Mavericks, he averaged 15.6 points per game, shot at 54.8% from beyond the arc. We know that he can knock down the 3-point shot over the last 5 games during the playoffs, shooting it at 58.2% from beyond the arc. I know the attempts are going to be there for him. I know he was a little inconsistent against the Denver Nuggets about making the 3-point shot, but I know for a guy like Naz Reid, he's the guy that can knock down those 3-pointers. He can also get to the basket as well. He can, he's a great rim runner as well when they do get out on the fast break and the guards are able to find him, whether it's Anthony Edwards, whether it is Mike Conley Jr. So I do like Naz Reid coming off the bench and just contributing scoring wise for this team. And again, if there is a part of it in game 2 where Rudy Gobert or Karl Anthony Towns do get into foul trouble, Naz Reid is going to play some more minutes covering for those guys. So add right now 10.5 for Naz Reid on his points prop. If you want to get on that, I do like that. I couldn't talk you off if you want to take a look at his 3-pointers as well. I'm pretty sure that number is at 1.5 as well for Naz Reid. Is at plus 105 because majority of his shots are going to come from beyond the arc. He's averaging 8.4 attempts over his last 5 games in the playoffs. Close to 4 of those 8.4 attempts are coming from beyond the arc for Naz Reid. So a couple there if you want to take his points prop over 10.5 or his 3-pointers to go over 1.5 in this game 2 here. Chris, any thoughts on Naz Reid?
Yeah, my thought is, how do you not love him here, especially if you think and the 1.5 threes is actually plus money too. I see it plus 105. Yeah, he just hit 3. He's still gonna be at home. You would have to think that this Minnesota Timberwolves team is gonna be a little bit more focused. He only played 24 minutes. I could actually see, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with Rudy Gobert, if the minutes drop for Rudy Gobert or not, because if he continues to play in that drop coverage, Kyrie and Luka could continue to feast, kind of like Al Horford and Tyrese Halliburton. And that could be to the detriment of this team. So you may need Naz Reid out there, a little bit more, just because he can move, a little bit quicker laterally. We saw, some guards kind of take advantage of Rudy Gobert in the first round of the series. And yeah, with Kyrie and Luka being out there, man, I watched the post game with inside the NBA crew, and Draymond was talking to Kyrie about that, drop coverage that Rudy Gobert was in, and he was saying, Kyrie was saying, that's the place where he wants the ball, where him and Luka wants the ball, when they can draw, you know, Rudy Gobert away from the rim. So I think that Naz Reid minutes could potentially increase, and he was one of the players who actually shot the ball well, above 50% for this Minnesota Timberwolves team last night. So outside of him and Jaden McDaniels, who was absolutely on fire, they didn't have a lot of guys that were scoring the basketball. Not Kyle Slow-Mo Anderson had a nice stint in there, but that was it wasn't sustainable. So I could definitely see Naz Reid continuing to play just as good. They don't really have a matchup for him, and I could also see him getting an uptick in minutes going up from the 24 here. So love the Naz Reid play. Probably going to be on his over the 1.5 3-pointers made here.
All right. So there are our 3 player props each for game 2 of the conference finals here. Chris, any honorable mentions you want to throw out there before we do get to our best bets?
So I want your opinion on this one. I see Rudy Gobert, his rebounds listed at 12.5 right now. Under slightly juiced at -120, which I see is the best number. And I'm kind of interested in playing under him, just because I do think that there will be. I don't know if I'm gonna get to the window. It's just a lean now, but we can call it honorable mention. But I just find trouble with, because Dallas didn't shoot the ball well. I mean, they shot 49% overall, but they shot 24% from the 3-point line, 6 for 25, and he only finished with 7 rebounds. Is that coincidental? Hear me now. But what I will tell you is, last thing I'll mention is the rebound opportunities were actually there. When in the playoffs, he's averaging 10.5 on 19.5 rebound chances, which of course leads his team. Game 1, it's a freaky outlier type stuff. Game 1, he has 7 rebounds on 25 rebound opportunities. Is he set to go? Like, what do we do with them? Especially knowing that they're gonna try to pull him away from the rim.
And I think that's exactly what it is, that they're trying to pull him away from the rim. But then you also have guys on this Minnesota Timberwolves team. I don't know if this makes sense or not, but you have guys, if they see a loose ball, they're going to go running towards it. And Rudy Gobert is not really that hustle type, right? I mean, if you just take a look at the box score last night, you had 4 different players that had 7 or more rebounds last night, which were between Rudy Gobert, Karl-Anthony Towns, and Anthony Edwards, of all players, who had 11 rebounds for this Minnesota Timberwolves team. So like every single night, whether it's regular season, whether it's playoffs, we know that the opportunities are going to be there for Rudy Gobert. But I mean, we've all mentioned this. I feel like he's just really soft. He's soft, man. And I think that, like, if you're going to be a big man in this league, that you need to put your foot down, and you need to, like, control the glass, because there's no reason why this guy year in and year out shouldn't be averaging 12.5, 13 rebounds per game, especially how he hovers around and is pretty much a rim protector, right? And I think that it's the case that what you mentioned, that Luka, Kyrie, and that offense are going to try to pull him away from the basket, which is going to open up the opportunities for other guys to get those rebounds. So I don't remember the last time I've won a prop on Rudy Gobert on his rebounding prop, Chris. I completely stay away from the guy from the exact reasons that you did mention. But yeah, again, it's going to be the fact that the offensive game plan of what Dallas is trying to do is that they're going to pull him away from the basket, which again limits the rebound opportunities for him to actually grab them. Or is it the fact that, that there's something else that's just, I don't know, that he's not able to grab them? They're just, other guys that are just quicker to the basketball, and it could be a combination of both. So I couldn't talk you off of if you wanted to take the under for him, especially like you mentioned, right? Dallas didn't shoot the ball well, which you probably do expect them to do that, which is a very scary proposition for Minnesota, especially like you mentioned, right? And I tweeted this out, that the Wolves were plus 27 from the 3-point line at halftime, but only up by 3 points, which I think was really crazy for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'll throw out one here. I think this was one that really caught my eye. for the Dallas Mavericks side of things was actually Derrick Jones Jr. on his rebounding prop. That number was at 3.5 last night for Derrick Jones Jr. at plus money. It's still there at plus money. It's at plus 110. He did finish exactly with 4 last night, but he's actually been rebounding the basketball very well for this Dallas Mavericks team. And I'll just quickly read off what he's done over the past couple games here, especially against Minnesota in particular, which is why it caught my eye. So on his career, he's averaging 4.5, but during the regular season, he had 4 rebounds, 9 rebounds, and 10 rebounds against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And last night, he did have 4. He had back-to-back games where he did have 4. So it seems like 4 is that number right now. If I continue seeing at a plus odds, Chris, I'm going to keep on taking it for Derrick Jones Jr. We know he's a guy that can get those putback dunks for this team, the opportunities as well. In particular, I like it because Daniel Gafford and both Derek Lively are a little bit they get into foul trouble is what I'm trying to say. And that's where, you expect Derrick Jones Jr. to be out there a little bit more. But also, I thought he did a fantastic job of defending Anthony Edwards in game 1. So I think if he's going to be matched up and he's going to be out there for the minutes, I think those rebounding opportunities are going to be there for him. It's only 3.5. I like it at that low number, but that was one that I did mention. I did bet it last night at around plus 120. It did get to me by the hook for Derrick Jones Jr. So I'll mention that as an honorable mention. Any thoughts on Derrick Jones Jr.?
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense, man. The only thing that scares me, I mean, your analysis is, I think, is spot on. The only thing that scares me just a tad bit is we talk about those defenders who are matched up against the number one offensive player on the opposite team. Typically not a lot of rebound opportunities if Anthony Edwards is the guy that he's going to be guarding. Ant didn't shoot the ball a lot. He only shot 16 times. I expected him to shoot more. Did have 8 assists, but a lot of that was just him being gassed too. Like, you call out Kyrie and say, you got Kyrie, and Kyrie shows up. You gotta show up against Kyrie as well. So just the slight hesitation is that Anthony Edwards wants to shoot the ball 25 times to avoid going down as much as he possibly can, going down 2-0 in the series, 0-2 in the series. So outside of that number is super low. The foul trouble, like you said, will be there. And Derrick Jones Jr., one of the quotes that I've that's kind of stuck with me throughout the playoffs. I think it was the game after they lost the last game to the Oklahoma City Thunder in round 2. Derrick Jones Jr. came out and said, they were asking him, how he felt about the game, and he said, "Man, I really just hate losing. Like, I'll do whatever to win." He said, "I don't sleep well after losses. Like, it's typically a long night." So, that's what you want to hear, right? And that to me, that says that I'm willing to do whatever I need to do for my team to win. And rebounding can definitely be that too. Especially you need game rebounding, especially when you're playing against Minnesota, who's such a big team. I mean, they got so many big guys, a lot of length, even guys that aren't necessarily that tall, just long arms like Jaden McDaniels that can, literally had a ball falling into his hands. And same thing with Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert. Anthony Edwards is an elite rebounder for a shooting guard as well. So I couldn't talk you off of that at all.
All right, so there's our honorable mentions here. Let's get into our best bets here for game 2 of the conference finals here. Excuse me. Chris, you want to lead us off?
Yes, sir. We're going right back to the top here, man. I really, really like this Miles Turner over 16.5 points, man. I talked about it, gave you guys the numbers, but just in quick summary, dude shooting 54% from the floor, 48% from the 3-point line, I think has the best matchup on the Indiana Pacers side of the basketball, where a slower Al Horford, trying to get out there and guard him, and he also, I didn't mention this earlier, he tends to go on runs by himself, where he like goes on a little 6-0 run and hit back-to-back threes, or like those type things, running down the rim, running down the lane. Of course, Tyrese Halliburton's going to try to find him. He's getting dunks, and it's led to a couple games in a row. It's led to opposing head coaches calling the timeout because he's reeled off 8 straight points, and that's always good. So the minutes will be there. I think he'll stay out of foul trouble and continue to shoot the ball well against the Boston Celtics here with, like I said, I think the best matchup on the floor. So I'll take Miles Turner over 16.5 points here. Love it.
All right, my best bet. Drew Holiday, man, rebounds and assists to go over the number of 10.5. Again, I think just because the way these offenses match up and just the pace, I think is still going to be there. I know the assist opportunities are going to be there. Like I mentioned, he had 13 potential assist opportunities in game one. Did finish the game, I believe, well, with 8 assists. Did have also 7 rebounds as well. And he's done well during the regular season as well against this Indiana Pacers team. So, um, again, a guy that plays on both sides of the court. I know that this Boston Celtics team loves that 3-point shot, so I believe that he will be able to find those guys in the corner, or whether it is Jason Tatum at the top, whatever the case might be. And again, those rebound opportunities are going to be there as well for this uh, Boston Celtics team, in particular, Drew Holiday. So not asking him to do, I think, a whole heck of a lot here. I think he can definitely repeat the performance of what he did, at least assisting and rebounding as he did in game one, where he had 15 combined here. So I'm going to continue riding this train of Drew Holiday on that assist and rebounds to go over 10.5 as my best bet. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Propcast for game 2 of the conference finals. We got game 2 tonight on Thursday between Boston and Indiana, and then game 2 between Dallas and Minnesota on Friday night. So covered both of those games here for you guys. Hopefully we are able to find the winners in with our best bets and the ones that we did give out here on the Propcast. So we'll be back next week. We'll get into, more than likely be game 4 at that point for the conference finals, and we'll be shifting cities, and also we'll be ramping up some NFL content as well. We'll start getting into some of the awards market. Try to do like one per week with myself and Chris, so look out for us on that. Propcast does have his own YouTube channel now, so make sure you guys get over there. We'll probably be going live there starting next week, and not on the NBA Gambling Podcast here anymore on this YouTube channel. So if you haven't already subscribed, now is the time to get there. Myself and Chris will be there throughout the NBA playoffs, and of course, like I mentioned, with the NFL season slowly but surely creeping up on us. Chris, anything else you want to mention? Anything you want to plug, man, before we get out of here?
Nah, man, just best of luck on your action, man. Enjoy the games. And check us out, wherever you stream your podcast, and leave us a review if you're, enjoying the content. And like I said, just best of luck, man, and bet responsibly. That's all I got. Enjoy the games, everyone.
Yeah, man, appreciate everybody in the chat as well. Enjoy the games this weekend as well. We'll be back next week. Make sure you guys follow Chris on Twitter. That's at ChrisBeCappinn, 2 P's and 2 N's. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off and let it ride.